With seasons about to begin, the transfer market is heating up, and nowhere is it hotter than on the Wonderkid market. We got PSG tapping into teenagers like their oil reserves. We've got Spurs and Wolves replacing departing starters with teenagers. We don't know if that's going to work, but we're going to talk about it. And of course, Chelsea is yet again a mess. We're going to discuss all these different topics and all the busy Wonderkid news next on Soccer Wonderkids at the Pitchside Pub. Welcome back to another Wonderkid Wednesday here at the Pitchside Pub. There is so much Wonderkid news going on right now as teams try to fill in the holes in their roster that are being made by having star players poached by big clubs, and now they're filling them in with teenagers. They're running out of money. These guys can be had a little more cheaply in some cases, but not always, as we saw with PSG, who landed a star teenager. So we got so much Wonderkid news. They're actually going to put out a couple of Wonderkid-related videos this week. We're not even going to get into Samu Omarodian and what happened with Chelsea and their disaster in this video. We're going to touch on that in a whole separate video because it's a really complicated situation. But basically the short version is Chelsea tried to pull one over on a 20-year-old and they got caught and the whole thing came tumbling down. Serves them right. So we'll get into that in another video that's going to come out later this week. But we got some big news for Wolves, PSG, Tottenham Hotspur, and some big name prospects on the move. But before we get into all that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. We do these videos at least once a week, if not more, if there's more news. So get down and subscribe for me. You can get some comments down there in the comments section. I'd love to get your thoughts on these moves. Your club, did they miss out? Do you love these moves? Get down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. And of course, check out the website, pitchsidepub.com, where you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. PSG making another big splash in the transfer market, and particularly the Wonderkid market, coming to terms with Stade de Reims for Desiree Doue, the 19-year-old winger who is a dynamic young talent and joins what is becoming a really impressive stable of young players at PSG. They are moving on from the Kylian Mbappe era, which they massively messed up, and the fact that they let him leave on a free or worked themselves into a situation where he was able to leave on a free has really, you would expect that to set them back. But because they have tons of money, they can go out and do stuff like this. But I want to commend the way they are doing it. They added João Neves, the young Portuguese midfielder, this offseason. And again, a big fee, a lot of money. And now they're going after Desiree Doue. But it's giving them a really impressive young core to build around, to go with Warren Zaire-Emery, who was a staple in their midfield last year, and they have a lot of really young teenage talent to go with a few guys who are in their early 20s, and it's not going to take them long to get back to where they were. And of course they can still compete in France, even if they took a couple steps back, they'd still be the best team in France, but that's not their goal. Their goal is to compete on the world stage and in the European stage and to make deep Champions League runs. And I never liked what they did with the Messi, Mbappe, Neymar setup. They went for the massive names, but Neymar and Messi were aging and were clearly just beginning those decline phases. In Messi's phase, and Neymar was probably further down his, but injuries were going to hit. You had too much star power. There was a dynamic clash in the locker room. It just never seemed like it was going to work. It seemed like the sort of thing that a kid would do in a video game, but doesn't work in real life. I love what they're doing with guys like Desiree Doue. It's a core of young talent who can grow together. And there's going to be times when they have 3 or 4 teenagers on the pitch at once and are still going to be competing, and they can get away with that in the domestic league because it's just simply not very competitive. But let those guys get the experience and grow, and maybe the more veteran players play in Europe, particularly in the more challenging Champions League games, and then some of these guys get to cut their teeth in League One action. And so I love what they're doing. I love this move. A lot of clubs were coming after Doue. He was linked heavily with Bayern Munich, and it seems like it really came down to those two, and he spurned them. Bayern Munich fans aren't really too thrilled about that, but it's tough to root for PSG because of the fact that they have such a financial advantage over the rest of their league. But I do like to see them spend it wisely. No matter how much money a club has, I like to see it spent wisely. And I like what they're doing with the young core. So this is yet another impressive teenage piece heading to the Paris capital, and they're going to be fun to watch this year. Tottenham Hotspur's yet another big club who has chosen to build around young players, and they could be adding to their stable of talent with young fullback Michael Kayote from Fiorentina. Now, I've talked a lot about Tottenham and their young players. I did a whole video on it when they signed Archie Gray from Leeds, and what an impressive young core they are building, similar to what PSG is doing, but even more so with Lucas Bergdorf and so many young players that are really could be a good core for the future, and Kayote could be a big piece of that. They do need fullback depth. After parting with Emerson Royale, which is a good move, he did not have a good season under Ange Postecoglou last year. He was exposed defensively. He's moved on to AC Milan, and they do need some depth at the fullback position, which Kayote could provide. They have Destiny Udogie on the left side and Pedro Porro on the right side, so they're probably set with the starters, but a young player who can provide depth and play in some of the lesser games, some of the League Cup games and things like that is an absolutely perfect move. So this could be a player who could come in and make some spot starts, be in the rotation, fill in when there's an injury. He was a starter. I played a lot last year for Fiorentina, and as a fullback had to take on a lot of really dynamic attacking wing players in Serie A and held his own defensively and did a really good job with that as a teenager. So he is probably ready for a jump up there if as long as he's not asked to start every single game at one of the fullback positions for Tottenham, which he shouldn't be barring injury. So I like this move. I love what Tottenham are doing with their young players. It's such a strong young core of teenage and early 20 talent, and Michael Kayote would fit right in. Speaking of replacing departing veterans with young talent, that's what Wolves appear to be trying to do, as they've been linked with Ajax winger Carlos Forbs to replace possibly Pedro Neto, who has gone on to Chelsea. And, you know, it would be an obvious step down, but Forbs is a really good young player and he fits a similar profile and could slot right in on that wing. You're obviously going to get a step down when you sell a player for a massive sum and then you bring in a teenager, but I don't mind that, particularly when it's a young, talented teenager. Forbs played a lot with Ajax last year. They've only had him for 1 year. They purchased him from the Manchester City Academy the year before that. Now, price has not really been announced and these negotiations are still ongoing. Ajax purchased him for 14 million euros from Manchester City a year ago, but Manchester City included a 20% sell-on clause. So you have to assume Ajax is going to need at least 20% more than the 14 they paid just to break even. Plus, they're going to want some feedback or some payback for the development that they put in. And he did get some playing time at Ajax and did have a good season. He fits a similar profile to Neto in that he loves to take on players, and he had some success there. The goals did not come in the Eredivisie last year the way they had come in Premier League 2 when he was playing for the Manchester City Academy, when he had a fantastic season with goal creation between goals and assists. We didn't see that at Ajax, and that will be a problem if he's expected to really slot in and play every day for Wolves. He's probably not there yet. You'd like to see him show that at the lower Eredivisie level before you expect it in him from the Premier League. But if he is there to try and accommodate other players and take on dribblers and get the ball in the box and maintain possession and things like that, he can do that right away while he's developing. So obvious step down for Wolves, but a good young talented player that they should be able to get for, I'm guessing, somewhere in the 20 million euro range, although, I've not seen prices come out yet, but Ajax is going to want to mark him up a little bit. But Wolves has the money. They just sold Pedro Neto for a ton of money, and they'll be able to spend probably less than half of it on his replacement while investing the other rest of it elsewhere. So good move. I love the philosophy for some of these mid-tier clubs to, when they have to sell off their players. And you know me, I always want them to keep them. I always want them to be able to retain their young talent. Neto is only 24. I would love to have seen Wolves be able to hold on to him. But if Chelsea's willing to shell out an arm and a leg, then Wolves have a chance to make the money, get the payday, bring in another good young talent, and then reinforce elsewhere. So I don't blame them one bit for making that sale. And if they can go replace him with a good young player like Carlos Forbs, that's a great move in their book. So we'll see if this one ends up coming to fruition. A lot of news coming out in the Wonderkid world from all over Europe. I would love to get your thoughts on all these stories and more. Was there anything I missed? Get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think. You can also leave comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. While you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Soccer Wonder Kids at the Pitchside Pub.